And it's time for us to debate about artificial intelligence and the ethics debate. Where is it that we are heading from here? How is it that the global trends suggested in development and in deployment of AI technologies ethical? How is it that we and our organizations are aligned with it all? What role do we feel that the regulatory compliance is playing in ensuring AI innovation? And of course, at the same time, how ready are we to adhere to legal standards as well as protect our user rights? To tell us about all this and more, may I please welcome on stage Mr. Akshay Yadava, Director at Unique Identification Authority of India, in conversation with Mr. Amit Patnaik, Partner at KPMG India. May I request all of you to please welcome them with a round of applause. Can we have the slide up on the screen so they can take a seat accordingly?
Hello, good afternoon. We are excited to have you in here with Mr. Akshay Yadav, who's a director with UIDAI. And my name is Amit Patnaik. I'm a partner with KPMG. I lead the data and the AI practice. We all know how UIDAI has revolutionized India's digital landscape and actually has propelled India to one of the leading economies in the world. And through the day we have heard the power of AI, and but it is quite powerful, but it is also important to know that as it was told in the morning, that it can land up in a mess if it is not responsible enough, right? So with that note, this would be a discussion on AI and the ethics debate. Very, very warm welcome to you, Mr. Yadav. And just to kick off your discussion, let's talk a little bit about yourself and the work that you do. And also, if you can highlight from your vantage point, what are the ideal uses of AI and what are the use cases that you see are relevant for today's world?
Okay, at the outset, I think thanks to the organizers for bearing with us. We were supposed to be 4 of us, and we are 2 of us in front of you. As all the AI could possibly tell us, I'm around about 10 minutes behind time in spite of Google Maps kind of factoring in the traffic congestions and rain and everything. So I'm in UIDAI, as Amit has already mentioned. We look at the identity validation, verification, and confirmation. You all are well aware. So the broad outlook is what you are, what you have, and what you know, what you are, and what you have. So with regards to AI, I think I will keep it a bit simple rather than in terms of context. Simple in the sense, AI has touched all our lives. And it is very easy to say that it has touched all our lives because every response that you now get on that small little phone that we carry more, securely than our wedding rings, I think, and we tend to latch onto it more emotionally. We are more emotionally attached to it. So the kind of responses that you get, your search parameters, your queries that are raised, and this is a very generic point I'm giving. Why am I giving this? We are looking at AI to give us a response which gives us a very calibrated feedback on a decision cycle. Now, if this calibrated feedback gets kind of overpopulated with data or data points, which are not accurate enough, then we get jumbled or kind of, pushed on to seeing some data points which may not be logical. Reference to context, your search parameters on the normal searches that you do for any facility, services, etc., or you're wanting to check in insurance. Now, AI is actually being leveraged on a very massive scale by the BFSI sector, to be very specific. And why so? because with account aggregation coming in and the quantum of data that you require now for certain processes to be automated, you want them to be moved on from the physical validation point of view to a digital validation, where the timelines for these processes to be completed need to be truncated, so that the decision of, say, opening a bank account, which earlier came to you in around about 7 days, now with a VSIP kind of a process, you can get it in around about 3 to 4 hours, depending on how much of internal due diligence the banks are doing or the BFSI sector is doing. In addition to it, when we look at it from our context, the amount of data now that is being consumed by the industry per se, and how it is getting manifested in terms of what services are being offered to you, and what is the credibility of that service, which is actually based on the data that has been collated from your usage patterns, your spend patterns, or your kind of reactive patterns. I think from that perspective, I would say that AI is quite integral to us. We all would say that as of now, the next trend topic is Gen AI, and we are not talking about it for the simple reason you want to move now to the next pedestal for the simple reason, once again. So the simple reason that you want to move on to the next pedestal is for the reason that it should give you a clear, educated response, which is more accurate and more specific to your needs. So I think overall, I would say that the usage patterns are well established. From our perspective, or your or my perspective, and KPMG is delivering, I think, a lot of excellent service. You're well aware that all the data points that you want to kind of touch on, you would want all of them to be accurate rather than OSN data getting scraped and then being pushed on to make a decision.
Absolutely. So let's explore that a bit, right? So how do you see the impact of, there's an excellent act that came out about the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. How do you see the impact of that in the development and deployment of AI solutions?
DP has been, I think, the talk of the town for the last year or plus, and consent managers and control of your consent in terms of data fiduciaries having these, entities managing your consent has become a very integral part. I will kind of keep it a little open-ended. As of now, your data is like that bottle of water. Till the time it is constrained in that geographic, design pattern of the bottle, it is secure. You are wanting to make it secure through DPDP. The consent, if I may give an example, all of us give some form of consent when we plug into some apps in some manner or the other. How many of us would want to kind of withdraw those consent at a point of time? It will depend on how much of information is that app or that web interface ready to give to you. Take a very simple example. We are having this conference in one of the hotels. At a point of time, a lot of members sitting here would have checked into one of the hotels for some business-related work or personal work, and at the point of check-in, you would have been asked for a officially valid document. My apologies, 99% of the times or 90% of the times, most of us would have handed over an Aadhaar. Don't get me wrong. And we would have willfully done it because it would have been a late night check-in. You don't want to wait at the counter. You just want to rush in. That Aadhaar, which you handed over, is a very important document, not only because it's a validator of who you are, but it is now linked to your financial identity as well. So this is one part of where the physical consent is getting handed over to somebody who's retaining it. What about the digital part in terms of onboarding, customer onboarding journeys? I may have given consent only for my validation or KYC for a credit card usage. I may not have given validation for my consent then to be used in a manner that certain suite services are offered to me, and I kind of get pre-onboarded onto them. So that is what is the control factor all about. And that is what DPDP is looking at kind of establishing. In the literal sense, tier 1 and 2, all of us are aware. We are more educated. Tier 3, 4, 5, and 6, the education levels create a barrier for me to control any form of consent, because the only thing at the back of my mind is whether I'm entitled to a service and how fast can I get onboarded to it, because it is affecting my financial stability. on a day-to-day existence basis. So hence, I would again reiterate that DPDP is, though there is a lot of talk in terms of implementation, feedback from the industry and the environment, but it is a step in the right direction because all of us are now consuming, from the industrial point of view, the industry point of view, the amount of data aggregation that is taking place has increased phenomenally.
So do you think this act which is in India, I think, is it comparable to something that's happening elsewhere in the world? What's your view around that?
I would not be the right person to comment, but I will still attempt. If the gentlemen and the ladies here have gone through the act or even seen some YouTube videos, you will realize that it is a more simplified version of the act. If you have gone through the document, you'll realize that unlike the legal part of CRPC, etc., there are no sub referrals where you have to refer quote and examples and then that precedence is taken note of. It is as simple in the manner in which it is written, in the manner to the manner in which it is applied, which is what the difference it has from that, I think, general data propagation app which is used in Europe. So there is a lot of difference. We must understand that there has been around about 4 years of study that has gone into bringing about the act. And it is primarily been brought about in a very simplified manner so that you don't need to refer to any legal consultant at a point of time, though a lot of people will, because the industry requires you to have a compliance parameter that needs to get factored in. But in terms of simple interpretation, it is as simple that when me and you read it, I think we will understand it as much.
No, absolutely. And I think we do make sure that these kind of guardrails are existing in any of the applications that we are developing, and we are following a very, very responsible approach in doing so. So on a different note, let's talk a little bit about the role of regulatory compliance and also the data fiduciaries in the development and deployment of AI. Your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that.
And especially if you can highlight in fintech.
See, okay, I don't know whether it can be responded to in the manner in which the query has been raised. Technically, if you look at the journeys, there was a point where the banks or the conventional instruments of financial inclusion could reach, and we are all now aware of the term that we were restricted to brick and mortar branches. The journey from the brick and mortar branches to where the last mile is what was kind of covered by the fintech entities. And the manner in which they brought these costs down is what got them scalability. And all this could be done because the processes were digitized. So we were having a discussion with somebody, and if you take your mind back to, if I don't know whether a lot of people would be aware, there is an application called Navana. It's a tech company which carried out a small AI interface application which is based on language model and related to dialect. That dialect has around about 2,500 variations. And they then kind of gave a solution to one of the small finance banks. That small finance bank works in a particular geography. The gap that they were facing was the individual going to open an account could not cover the touch points that were expected to get certain number of accounts onboarded as per a requirement. I will not use the word target, but as per the projected requirement. What did they do? They made an application where the application was, it was based on audio. Your journey of onboarding itself was digitized. And along with that digitization of that journey, you had an audio voice which was telling you what to do. This was primarily focused towards ladies. So they started with a base of around about 650 ladies, scaled it up to around about 750,000, of which, based on the data and the spend patterns, that is where AI comes in, They kind of translated this into 40% of these ladies who didn't have a conventional credit score, but based on the onboarding expenditure patterns, they were offered loans, short instrument loans. So I think AI in terms of fintech is an enabler. That is what is differentiating the fintechs from conventional financial institutions. And that is the reason that all of us are, I would not say we are not very fresh, but we've all just finished a global fintech festival, which was kind of a showstopper event, which happens in our place in Mumbai every year. The footfalls were phenomenal. What was worth seeing were the tech companies who had, a lot of showcasings to do in terms of data usage, response patterns, face mapping, aggregation based on your tech services, aggregation based on your input and responses, and your day-to-day management, responses. How could they be translated into a decision-making cycle?
I think that's a very important point. I think all of us who are working on developing AI-based solutions, I think we have a responsibility that, given that AI is only as good as the data that you feed in, and therefore I think it's our responsibility to make that the data is representative, and the biases are taken care of, right? One other aspect that we would like to talk about, that given that UIDAI's public policy purpose that they have, and can you throw some lights about how sustainable AI can make a significant impact on, let's say, tier 3, tier 4 cities?
I will again quote it through an example in a very simple manner. Tier 3, 4, and 5, and if I may be a little casual in making a statement, my nephew or my niece, who's class 10th or 12th pass, is as good as Bill Gates because they have more experience on digital platforms in terms of smartphones or computers, etc. And I am a bit worried when I kind of, access any service. So here, what are the e-commerce platforms doing? E-commerce platforms are aggregating your spend patterns and kind of, giving you a kaleidoscope of what you can access based on your spend patterns. So it is, and your demand generation, if you see the market trends also, most of the tier 1 and 2 demand generations are very stable and very static, and they are very conformist, We have settled into our ways of life. Tier 3 and 4 are aspirational demands. You are wanting access to certain utilities, services, items, etc., which you have not had in a normal course of the way you have been brought up. And this is where that AI data aggregation comes in. And, tier 3 and 4, when we talk about tier 3 and 4, we must understand there are a lot of things happening. Institutionally, the government is wanting to push, not wanting to, but is pushing Ayushman Bharat. So why I give this example is 5 lakhs is the spend pattern in terms of the medical treatment that can be done. What about beyond 5 lakhs? It covers the members of the family, but what about once the expenditure is beyond 5 lakhs? Is there a case in point for somebody to do a value, assessment? How many such percentage volume of, insured people who are given medical insurance can be covered in a manner that they can be offered certain instruments of health insurance based on the necessity that they have, based on the need that they have, based on the assessment of the pattern of illnesses, whether minor, major, or severe. So I think that is what you would want to kind of take note of, and that is what you would want to use AI for. There are schemes like the agri-tech. I think we all are aware of. There is Kisan credit card that is getting pushed, and I will quote an example again, not from this. There is a particularly vulnerable tribes and groups campaign that was run by Government of India. It carried on from last, I think, October till around about February. Then it has been pushed again. So this is those sections of society who didn't have an identity or had an identity but didn't have valid documents. Besides the identity, didn't have a land holding, so they have been given a Kisan credit card. All this has been done based on data aggregation only. They have been given access to small, housing fund loans for them to move from thatched construction to a brick and mortar house. So that is how you would want data aggregation to be used beyond tier 3.
Okay, excellent. Maybe I'll invite some questions from the audience. If you have any questions related to ethics in AI, maybe I would request. Yeah, you have a mic?
Hello, sir. My name is Abhinav. I am from Nippon India Mutual Fund. I have a question on the LLMs and the use of LLMs. We have been using LLMs for quite a few months and all. I would like to know, is there a regulation in place that actually checks for those answers that LLMs have been trained on, right? Because right now, in every walk of life, we see LLMs being used for small tasks to medium tasks and heavy load shifting as well. But are we heading towards some kind of regulations so that we understand that these answers that are coming from authentic sources and not from some sources which were just made up? Because we all know for a fact that LLMs are trained on widely available internet data. So is there a regulation in place right now, or are we heading towards something? Because just want to have some authenticity built around the responses that we get through LLMs and its use.
So,
Thank you.
If I may be a bit off track. Why don't you sit down, please? The large language models are primarily US based, you are well aware now. We are customizing it a bit within our own setup. So from the regulation point of view, I will put it simply, it will be on a forum like this, I will not be able to comment on it. You will understand the reasons why. From the point of view of generation of responses, see, the LLMs require a lot of data for them to be trained. So the source input data, if it is coming from credible sources, you are basically wanting to kind of safeguard against the false positives, to be very honest. So ultimately, it is dependent on the sourcing of the data and the model that you have built in. So if you want a particular set of responses to be accurate, and putting it simply, you want my financial standing to be told. If it is being told based on my bank account statement, my credit card statement, and a CIBIL score, you will consider, and this is a very small hypothetical example, you will consider it to be more accurate than what you will get from the Kirana store where I purchase groceries from. Though that data is also aggregated, to be very honest. The merchant data is actually aggregated to manage their spend patterns for their bulk purchases. So I would, in the end, only say that it all depends on how you are structuring your data, and like you rightly pointed out, what are you basing it on?
And technically, if I may add that it is very critical for us to manage that knowledge base that you provide as the context to that. And you would know that, grounding those responses to the right sources is the thing that, from a regulatory perspective, obviously, we'll yet to see that if there are regulations around that or not. But how we are countering it now, I think you might be quite aware of how we are grounding our answers to specific sources. And that is what is providing efficacy to that solutions. Any other question? Yeah, I think there's a question. Can somebody pass a mic there?
Hello, sir. Since you are from UIDAI, I have one question. The day I got my Aadhaar card, so far I have at least made 300, 400 copies of that, and it's circulating everywhere. That is one risk. Secondly, with the high resolution cameras, suppose even if I wave my hand, my fingerprints are captured or my iris is scanned. How safe is this data for the,
Can I know your name, please?
my name is Utkarsh.
Utkarsh, I am sorry. I am only laughing because this is one of the set pattern question that comes up in any forum. So, my apologies. So, whatever you've given in physical form, to be very honest, the institutional mental check has to be that you cross that and give it, valid for that purpose, for that date, at that place only. So, even if you may have been forced to give it, because I can understand from the field point of view, when you go to get something, at a point of time, it comes to a decision ki ye saman lena hai, to ye dena hai. As simply as I can put it. So if you still want a safeguard to be set, yes, you can cross it. Your second question, very specific, and I will quote to context. You can't pick these up from an image. You cannot. Why you can't pick them up? There are lands and grooves in your fingerprints. They require for them to be scanned on a slapstick scanner, which measures the gap of the lands and grooves and the tendon height of your skin. So that is why when you now do a biometric authentication in terms of fingerprints, which is a lot of us are doing for your banking journeys, your voter cards, your credit card access, or your validations in terms of KYC that you're doing, there is a liveliness check that has been built into it. So if somebody may want to manipulate it from there, it cannot be. yes, at times, and because I'm assuming you will come up with a second query, the news media gives you inputs where certain amount of gummy fingerprints have been used for certain transactions to have been made to pass through. So that is what is now being checked at the back end by us. If you go back 3 years back to the current period, they have gone down drastically. If you go back to the institutional check in terms of what the regulatory compliance has kind of visualized for it, for the tech to be implemented, the closest implementation is the guidelines of RBI to NPCI to factor in now multi-factor authentication as a standard. So this is from the fingerprints part. From the face part, we are currently, for the last 2 years, and the industry has been very positive in adapting or adopting your face auth. And the closest relatable example of face auth that majority of people here will relate to is your DigiYatra. So please go back and check back in time how many times that you have gone to the airport and in place of you standing at that kiosk which checks your face, have you tried to show your image and it has been passed through? You will get an answer to your question. Correct. I hope I have been able to respond to your query.
No, sir. I was talking of the iris, not the face.
Okay. So for the iris also, there were certain issues around about a couple of months back. Now, within the iris parameter check that we do, we are ensuring that there is no bypassing of the iris check. See, single fingerprint or single iris authentication takes place where your multiple fingerprints are not going through, so the alternate mechanism is an iris check. And there were some reports that there are certain slippages or assessed slippages that took place, but they have already been brought to a close.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I think that's the amount of time that we had. Thank you so much, Mr. Yadav. That was very, very insightful. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Amit. Thank you. And thank you to the lovely audience here and to the organizers. Thank you.
Thank you.